And let's see, we have Catherine Deviney, we have Joe Campanella. I saw Chris, there's Chris Nelson.
I'm here.
Chris Nelson, David Mello. We at this moment do not have Max. We never have Mr. Palmer. And we have Mr. Capella. Do you have a voice, Mr. Capella? Are you on, James? Might be muted. Let's see. He's muted. James, you're muted. If you can find a way to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay.
I was on the. I apologize. So I'm off the phone now.
Oh, great. Okay.
I'm here.
Great. And we have Stephen Sack from the community. Henry, welcome. Henry Millward. And Henry, if I recall, you have to leave at 8. So if we get close to that, we will bump you up in the agenda.
Thank you.
And we have Max. We have a full house. This is great. Okay. Good evening, all. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the January 27th meeting?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Any opposition? Any corrections? Hearing none, they are approved. James got them into Madonna King, who posted the draft minutes, so anybody that could see them could have spoken up. So great. We have some old business. The plan, the draft plan, which I think is now called a February 5th draft. Catherine worked in the suggestions that we received from the town manager and from some of the other recommendations that we got. It still is a draft, but we sent a letter to Matt Hart and to Ben Winograd, who chairs the commission subcommittee, the town council subcommittee that would receive the plan, and we asked them to formally take it under consideration for approval. We're submitting it as a draft because we're going to continue to get comments on the plan, and we have no doubt that the town council will also make some comments. So we figured, why button it up when it's going to be revisited? Yes, Catherine.
One point on 2 points on that. There's going to be an article coming out in West Hartford Life by Tracy Weiss, focused on what West Hartford is doing towards a clean energy future. She interviewed both me and Bernie. She is putting a couple of slides, I think. She's mentioning the plan and putting a couple of slides with draft written all over them, potentially in the article, with contact information so that people can get to the plan and provide feedback as well. So that will be another opportunity for visibility and public comment. And then the other thing I was going to say on that was, we have provided also a copy of the plan to Bernie and Mark Scully's organization, PACE, in case other towns, just like in 2009, would like to, copy our plan so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we're all pushing forward in the same direction.
Yeah, and I think Chris and Joe Campanella, who are on this commission, they were around when the original plan was constructed, and I think the 2009 plan actually served that very same role that Catherine mentioned, namely it was looked at and copied and emulated by other towns. So we're not trying to be better than everybody else, we're trying to make everybody better, I think. Okay, I have there's an item on the agenda that I just want to touch on briefly. We can have a little bit of a discussion on it. Namely, last week, the Texas grid went down. People lost their lives. I think we all know this story pretty well. And some of the early feedback was that it was the fault of renewables. We received a comment that the commission should re-examine our commitment to solar and to wind. As the reporting matured, as people came to understand what really happened, it was really not that at all. So I'm not going to revisit that sort of political comment, but I do want to be clear that this is a lot of what is in this plan. If God forbid what happened to Texas was to happen to West Hartford, if we follow what we're doing in this plan, we will be better off. It doesn't directly address a lot of the issues, and some of the issues are purely Texas, so we don't even have those issues. But if we insulate our homes and make our appliances more efficient, we're going to be able to survive. We're going to be able to be adapted to climate change. So, and actually on, I think it's on page 24 of our plan, there's a bullet in there that it says we want to explore with the town a climate action plan and a climate resiliency plan. All of these things, there's more that we can do, but I want to say even the way the plan is written now would be beneficial if we execute on it in a Texas type situation. So that's just and we didn't have a chance to talk. Does anybody have a comment or anything on that?
Are you going to formally write anything back to Sean Daly?
That's a good question. I have the sense that that comment was made on sort of premature knowledge. So I would, in other words, I think just the flow of events and from Fox News, et cetera, was that it was fully the cause of frozen windmills. I mean, I could make a comment. I see not a ton of value in getting into a fight.
So the fact that he wrote us a letter, there's no need to further address that.
Yeah, I think we have to consider things as they come in.
Okay.
Well, what's the sense of the group? Do you think it's worth a response?
I mean, you've responded back and forth a couple of times, and you know, I don't know. It's not necessarily our role to educate, like on things that are sort of out there, available in the news. Like I don't want to. We don't need to argue with him. I think he's wrong. But
Yeah.
I would suggest that we, I haven't been diligent about it, but I can go back because I haven't deleted any emails. We were keeping a spreadsheet tracking public comments that came in, feedback, positive and negative. So we could add the general themes from his email to that spreadsheet. And then, you know, in another column, we have kind of our response, you know, whether this was included or not. So it shows, if anyone eventually would like to see that, we have tracked the feedback that came in, that we considered it, and that we decided to act on it or not. So we can add it to that spreadsheet, along with some other things that I haven't had a chance to go back and put in.
Well, formally, he hasn't backtracked at all. He's just said that what he wrote that morning, which was disturbing at best, I found disturbing. He wasn't taking a position with all of those titles that he listed in his emails. So I don't know if it makes sense because what he said in that email was very close to what, or had some of his comments concerning our energy plan that he reviewed as a commissioner on the environmental committee.
Yep.
So I don't know if it makes sense to, write him something to make sure that, we understand where he stands on this. And if he's committed to fighting the idea of renewable energy, then I think we should call him out on it.
Yeah. Well, I think Max, I think your point, I don't feel like arguing, but one service I think we can provide as a commission is any truly believed and truly held and truly thought input. I think that's, as Catherine said, we've been sort of methodically recording it, and we don't have to agree with it. We don't have to necessarily act on it, but I guess let me draft an answer that would, I don't know, certainly state our position, but also.
I'm not even sure, Bernie, that you need to state your position. You could just say, thank you for your feedback. It will be considered. And then, whether it makes it in or not is the consideration. And clearly this is a draft, and we will pass it to the town council in the form that you commissioners, this commission, would like it to go. And then there's another opportunity for public comment before the town council passes it.
Right. Good point, Catherine. I guess what I want to do is keep the lines of communication, even with people that don't agree with this, open. As long as they sincerely, if it's a political football, let's not get into it. But if it's a real position, I'm willing to talk about it. But I think you're right. Thank you for your feedback, and there's other chances for comment. So, okay, I'll run it by you guys by the commission.
He's on the Environmental Commission, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
I find that surprising.
Well, I bet I don't know enough about to make any comment.
I missed that. Who's that from, that letter?
It's a gentleman, Chris Daly, I think, or is it Chris or
Chris Daly?
Mr. Daly? He's on the commission, the Energy and the Conservation and Environment Commission, and if you he just made a comment of sort of saying wind power doesn't work, and look at what's happening in Texas. Sean Daly, thank you.
Yeah, so his two big points are that he thinks solar power is terrible because we don't know how to recycle PV panels, and we think wind power doesn't work in New England because it didn't work in Texas. But they didn't winterize their turbines because they were gung-ho about it never being winter. It works just fine in North Dakota, and it can work just fine in New England.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to some relatives down in Texas and that are in the energy world, and the issue, one of the major issues down there is the backup generation. Nat gas generation plants were not winterized for backup, and that's what really killed them. So even if the windmills went down, they had no backup. They didn't have properly winterized backups, and the natural gas generation power plants kept going down. But also look at our plan has some fuel diversity. So you've got solar, wind, and some biofuel into it. So you are endorsing, not all your eggs in one basket with it.
Yep.
And I mean, I guess I don't know if we haven't really discussed in length the PV recycling issue. I mean, it was the first anybody had ever raised that. I don't think it's a ridiculous issue, but it seems to me warehouses full of solar panels somewhere because we don't know what to do with them is still better than burning coal.
Yeah. And I've been in touch with a PV solar panel recycler. The technology exists. It's commonly done in Europe, and it can be done here. I mean, on a small scale. The point is, when you drive around and see solar panels, they probably have at least 25 years of life on the roof left. So I don't like kicking the can down the road, but I don't think with all the other alligators that are biting us, I don't think we have to focus on that one.
And the can doesn't create any pollution while it goes down the road.
Oh, well said. Well said. Okay. Just a report, Catherine and I have been drawn into this unusual combination of the West Hartford Arts Commission and the Clean Energy Commission. And you say, how can those two worlds ever collide? And they collide because a lady from Bloomfield actually reached out. I think she might be a West Hartford resident, but encouraging the idea of public art on EV spots, so that we would set them aside as special. We would clearly make them be recognized as EV spots. We'd be able to sort of combine the environmental with the artistic, which I think is an important thing to do. And I think we're getting pretty close to being able to let out a commission. We have to find a sponsor, right, Catherine? A legal entity sponsor. It might be the town, it might be the West Hartford Art League, something along that line. But I think we're getting pretty close. Is that your read, Catherine?
Yes, this is going to be a sustainable Connecticut Community Match Fund project, where they're seeking to raise community money and have it matched 50-50. So this is kind of an art and energy project wrapped into one. Yeah, and it may be, and I think Bloomfield is going to be the point person.
Okay. I think I left the U.S. Conference of Mayors Climate Protection Award on by accident. We talked about that last month. I think we have donated the money at this point.
Nope. Well, it's okay that it's still on there, because actually the actual award and the check have not come yet. So that's still in process, and but it's in the final stages. So there may be an award ceremony and a check presentation, but I'll let you guys know if that's happening. But it does seem kind of after the fact.
Okay. It's okay to say who it is, right? At this point, is that?
Yes, I think we said that on the previous meeting. The award recipient of the $15,000 is going to be BC Co, which is a division of the Center for Latino Progress.
Very good. And so I think, so that's quick. Henry Millward is here. You'll recall, I think it was 2 meetings ago, he visited us with those students talking about a climate emergency. They've provided us with a draft, which I think we sent around. Let me see if I can put it up on the screen. It may take me a second to do that. Henry, are you speaking for all the students?
Yeah, we're actually having a big meeting a little bit later tonight, going over the draft with CCL, the Connecticut chapter, the larger Connecticut chapter. So I didn't want to pull them out of too many things in one night, because I know they've still got homework and everything.
They're so much more involved than I was when I was their age. So
I know, it puts me to shame. It really does.
have I got the right document here? Yes.
Yeah, that's good. It's still in the process of being commented on. Your comments, I think, are on there, as well as Neil, who's from CCL.
Okay, so we can scroll through this quickly, so you have some whereases.
Yeah.
Greenhouse gas. Go ahead, Henry. You want to walk it?
Yeah, I don't know. We can go through the whereases if you want. I thought, this group, the whereases won't be as controversial as the what's being resolved. But we can go through the whereases if you want.
I'll just make the observation. When I looked at it, what I like about what you and the students have done is they've made it local to us.
Mm-hmm.
When they talk about Spice Bush Swamp, the West Hartford Reservoir, Trout Brook, I mean, they're taking it, it's not about Paris or even Pittsburgh, it's about West Hartford, and I think that's a valuable service.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the toughest thing with that is the other thing we tried to do. A lot of the other climate emergency resolutions had the sourcing of the information kind of in the whereas. So, it would be like the IPCC report of, this year, this number of people agreed to it, and this is what it says. So it would be a lot of throat clearing before you got to the actual meat of the whereas. So I don't know. I was going to ask you guys about this. I don't know if it's okay to do this, but we just got to the meat and then footnoted the sourcing. Is that ever done in resolutions?
I don't know. I mean, you can go on and pull some of the prior resolutions, but I think it reads much better in this regard. Any resolution that goes to town council has to go through approval by legal counsel for the town. So they will help craft exactly the format that they want.
I gotcha. So getting back to the sourcing, if this is allowed, we were trying to find sources for all the whereases, and while we did find good resources and sources for impact on Connecticut, we had a little trouble finding like a concrete source for West Hartford specifically. So I think we on that whereas that Bernie's talking about, the natural areas in and around West Hartford that we all enjoy, like Spice Bush Swamp, the West Hartford Reservoir, Trout Brook, and our wonderful parks, risk decreased biodiversity. So we have that instead of they will, under business as usual scenarios end up like this, we say risk to kind of hedge our bets a little, because we don't have any kind of scientific report for that.
I do know that
Sorry.
out at UConn, there's a climate scientist. Her name is Angie Seth.
Okay.
And she doesn't do biodiversity that I know of, but things like extreme rainfall and long periods of drought, extreme heat. I think she's one of the natures of her work is she takes the resolution of her projections is very small. So she might even be able to get to something like West Hartford, or certainly east of the river, or west of the river, or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I will definitely. It's Seth, Seth, right?
Seth, yeah.
Okay. I'll look her up.
But I wouldn't. The whereas, as you sort of suggested, are people scroll through, and at least I'd scroll through and say, okay, what are we meant to do? Who's meant to do what?
Right.
Not to short circuit any conversations. I know I think I made some comments before. Next 12 years, I thought it was 12 years a while ago, but a couple of years.
Yeah, probably was. We probably haven't discounted for when the report originally.
I think there is a countdown element to this.
I guess the one whereas is that we really felt strongly about, that I want to emphasize, that I don't think we brought out enough when we were talking to you, is the last one. Whereas climate change is fundamentally a shared problem requiring collective action, individual and municipal responsibility by itself are insufficient to address the problem scale. So this really motivates at least the first part of our resolutions, in the sense that we want the town to resolve to kind of work outside of itself. I know there's lots of important stuff going on inside the town, but in a collective action problem, as important as it is to work on your own stuff, it makes an even bigger impact if you're putting outward and upward political pressure on other polities to work as well. You know, in the sense that West Hartford could go carbon negative and it really wouldn't, you know, make a difference, right? If everybody else is business as usual.
So you're asking the town to lobby our legislators to do things and them to do things in DC. And so that was what you mean by kind of pushing upward.
Yeah, looking for opportunities as well as to, you know, as well as the individual projects that we're working on in town to
Look
for,
beyond our borders.
yeah,
Yeah.
for collaboration in the sense that, you know, I think all of us are, you know, working with this committee or working on this committee in the case of commissioners, kind of beyond our own individual responsibility, you know, our composting, our recycling, our, you know, electric cars or whatever, to, you know, create something beyond our own individual responsibility that puts pressure on those around us to also, not in a forceful way, but just in a collaborative way.
So I mean, I'm just throwing my suggestions out, but you know, you might want to say something more direct, like, you know, climate change. The issue of climate change doesn't stop at the municipal border, you know, so that, you know, the solutions are going to be more than just focusing on what we do as a town. I don't know. Eloquently. Max can eloquently word it. He's good with words. Let Max review this.
I do agree with you. I think not only would West Hartford be carbon negative, not be anywhere near enough. I think even the United States.
Yeah.
It is and so the point you're raising, I think, and it's very much in our ethos here, is we're doing this because it makes sense locally.
Mm-hmm.
Also doing it to be an exemplar to others and leading the way. And I use this kind of maybe a strained analogy, but if you've ever been in one of those caves like Luray Caverns or something, you'll see stalactites that hang from the ceiling and you see the stalagmites that come up from the ground. What we want is a column that meets in the middle. We want the stalactite to meet the stalagmite. We're the stalagmite in this little drama. So the action takes place. And I think it's important, I think, to have direction from on high and action and direction from our level as well. So I agree with your point. I have.
Should I go through some of the other resolves, Bernie?
Sure, by all means.
So real quick, one of the things we resolved is that West Hartford creates a climate action commission or repurposes an existing commission, and that was we wrote that before we saw the mayor's announcement of the sustainability commission. So I'm not sure how this will change in light of that. I still have to kind of read up, and I know you've put good links in your notes to the town meeting, I think, where they passed that, right? The town council meeting where they passed that.
Yeah, I put the recording link in. Henry, I will send around they didn't make any changes to the resolution, and I will send around the copy of that was posted on the board agenda. Obviously, we don't have the certified copy yet. This was a task force or advisory group that was in the works, and we've talked about it at some of our previous meetings. And I think, yes, I don't think it's in conflict with your resolution. We just have to figure out how all the pieces of this puzzle fit together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a complete newbie question, but what's the difference between a commission, say, and a task force? Is a task force just temporary, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the task force in this case, and I'm not cleanly aware of the major differences between an advisory group and a task force. I think that's more about name. But between a commission is a permanent commission and is subject to all the party requirements. In this case, the advisory group will not be subject to party requirements and has been tasked with a particular purpose. And once that purpose is fulfilled, that advisory group may be dissolved.
Okay.
Or maybe converted, just as the Clean Energy Task Force was converted into a full commission.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I will say, if you look at the Conservation and Environment Commission, it is formed. Actually have, as I read their charter, climate change and CO2 emissions fits easily within what I would think they would be charged to do. So you might call for a specific climate change commission. My druthers would be to just get this on the agenda of an existing body and make something happen that way. But
yeah, well, I know we were having discussions earlier about, in terms of the Energy Commission, the Clean Energy Commission, you guys were saying that some of the aspects of climate change were firmly in your purview, like the energy stuff, of course, but then there were some things that you were saying didn't quite fit in. And so is that going to be the same with the Conservation and Environment Committee, or can climate change be handled piecemeal, like part of it was with you guys and part of it's with the Conservation and Environment? Or
I think, I don't know, the way I think about it is it could be in their purview and we handle the energy portion of it. But things like adaptation and other stuff would be in their court.
okay, would be in there.
But I don't know. I do think it, on the one hand, it's nice because they exist and they've got some power. On the other hand, they already exist. They've already got their ways, and they'd be sort of changing the direction of their ship a little bit. But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
I don't know that they wouldn't welcome it.
Yeah. We're planning on definitely approaching them about it. Another thing, and I don't know if this is part of the sustainability task force, is that we were calling for particularly high school membership on the commission that we were recommending be convened. And I don't know if the sustainability task force plans on having any youth members. I know you guys were also considering the possibility of having youth members here too.
Yep. I think all three commissions would have youth representation. It is definitely part of the sustainability advisory group. The Clean Energy Commission is definitely interested in youth representation.
Okay.
The problem with that is it's not in the resolution. So we either have to do that informally in some manner. That's one of my jobs, is to work on figuring out how that would look and whether that happens on an informal or a formal basis. If it's formal, then we will need to change the composition of the task of our commission by resolution, because it's not in there currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. And so if it was informal, they would not be voting, right? But then if there's a way to do it formally, they would vote.
Yeah. Maybe you could ask your youth members this evening how they feel about that. This is only regard to the Clean Energy Commission, because that would be a useful thing to know.
Sorry, ask them what happened.
If they feel it